Hello and welcome back. My name is Dr. Christopher Gennari, and this is Egypt's New Kingdom. Egypt's New Kingdom is the Imperial Age. It is where Egypt flexes its muscles. It is where the pharaohs show up to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and they are all out of bubblegum. The New Kingdom lasts about 500 years. It is the Imperial Age. Legitimacy equals war and protection. This is the age of Tutmos. This is the age of Ramses. This is the age of the great warrior kings. You could see this right here in the image. Look at Pharaoh. Now this is King Tut, a nobody. King Tut is only famous because he was so insignificant, looters didn't loot his stuff. But look at how he's represented. This is his war in Kush, his war in Africa. And look at him. He's 10 feet tall. He's got the ravens, which are the gods, on his side. He's got animals on his side. He is mowing down, all by himself, thousands of African enemies. An entire army is being waste by him. He is 10 feet tall. His horses are magnificent and huge. The only Egyptians in the scene are the ones fanning him. So, that while you win a giant-ass battle all by yourself, you shouldn't have to sweat in the heat. This is the image of a new kingdom king. No longer is this king the guy who helps orphans and saves turtles from the flood. No longer is this the guy, the great builder, who will build pyramids. This is a king with an army who is going to beat you up if you're an enemy, or reward you with money and loot if you're a friend. So they build an army. The new kingdom is going to be the army age, and that army is going to be a Mesopotamian army. It's going to have chariots, horses, bows. It is not an Egyptian army. It is not a Egyptian native army. Egyptians are in it, but the way it fights is totally a Mesopotamian way of fighting. Basically, they said, we lost to this. We lost to a Mesopotamian army, so to defeat a Mesopotamian army, we have to build a better Mesopotamian army. And we get strong warrior kings. Ahmose will defeat the Hyksos. Thutmose will invade Palestine and Kush. Ramses II will go and fight the Battle of Kadesh, the oldest battle we have records of, versus the Hittites, which are 800 miles away, all the way up the coast in Syria, on the border with Turkey today. It took years to get up there. He had to cross the Sinai Desert. He had to go through Palestine, through Phoenicia, through Syria, to the mountains. This is the far end of a map, all to show that Pharaoh is strong, because the Hittites were messing around with some of Pharaoh's friends, and they sent the word to Ramses, Ramses, help us. And Ramses said, hell yeah, I will. Get your stuff together, boys. We're going. And people went, wait, where are we going? You see that map? Yeah? All the way at the top. What? Okay. All right, we're going. 800 miles in the ancient world is massive. Egypt is a great power, like the Babylonians, like the Hittites. They keep their alliances. They beat up their enemies. The world becomes divided between these big three. The Hittites in the mountains of Asia Minor, the Babylonians in Mesopotamia, and Egypt on the Nile. Nobody else is significant in this world. It is one of the big three. And if someone comes a knocking, you do what they say. So Egypt forces its way from conquered to conqueror. There are problems with this. The first is that it's expensive. Armies are the most expensive thing mankind has ever built. The Mesopotamian army that Amos will build is even more expensive than the pyramids, because the pharaohs are going to need to conquer other territories in order to help pay for this. It's expensive, and you have to have this money up front. Two, it requires an active, powerful king, an A+ hero. What's the problem with that? Well, how many A+ heroes are there? Other than on the Avengers or Justice League, they're pretty rare. Like, think about how many great, super great, awesome great presidents we've had. We've had 45 presidents. How many super great ones have we had? 2? 3? Washington, Roosevelt, FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, and Lincoln. Other than that, we've got some good ones. We have some crappy ones. But how many super A+ ones do we have? Basically, Washington, who created the position. So he should get the credit for, like, making a position that's still being used and hasn't ever had a coup against it. And then we have the man who won the Civil War and the man who helped get America out of the Great Depression. Both of which could have gone very differently. Just take a look at the president before Lincoln, Buchanan, who basically let the Civil War happen, who did very little to stop it. Basically dropped it on Lincoln's plate and said, I'm going back to Pennsylvania. Good luck with that. A+ heroes are like first round Hall of Fame quarterbacks. They simply don't come around all that often. Like, how many Tom Brady's are out there in the league right now? All right, you got Aaron Rodgers. All right, and who? Now that Peyton Manning is retired, you're talking 2, maybe 3 guys in a league of 30 teams that have someone of that kind of awesomeness. They're just rare. They just don't. How many Napoleons are there? There's 1. How many Ramses are there? 2. Ramses the 2nd, Ramses the 3rd. But they just don't come along all that often. And so if you build a system that requires an A+ leader, it's going to have problems, because most of the time you're not going to get that person. Most of the time you'll get someone mediocre. Mediocre kind of good, mediocre kind of bad, but you'll get someone who's mediocre. Think of Kadesh. Think of the Battle of Kadesh. The Battle of Kadesh, if you take a look at the map, is way up in Cilicia. It's way up there. It's 800 miles away. That means the letter had to come in, and Ramses looked at it and said, I'm going. Get me 30,000 men. They're going with me. And those 30,000 men said, hell yeah, Ramses, we're going with you. And then he had to cross a desert. He had to go to Palestine. He had to go to Phoenicia. He had to go to Syria. He had to sleep out in tents. And now he sleeps well. He's a pharaoh of Egypt. He does not rough it. But he still then had to get all the way up there, knock on the Hittite front door, fight a battle, win the battle. Now, the Battle of Kadesh turns out to be kind of a draw. No one loses it. Both sides claim to win it. But let's face it, he went 900 miles to fight it. He's kind of cool in that. He's kind of the winner there. You know, if the Hittites showed up in Egypt and fought the Egyptians to a draw, the Hittites could claim, yeah, we kind of won that because we went to their house and we won. So, yeah, it's a draw, but Ramses could claim a win. Because he did, and then they had to come home. They must have been gone 2-3 years. Ramses decided to do that, but other pharaohs will say, get that letter and go, ooh, crossing 2 deserts, going away for 3 years. I could do that. I could do that. Or I could stay in my hot tub and say, send Bill. Hey, General Bill, you want to go? Okay, Mr. Pharaoh, sir, I'm ready to go. You go, Bill. Go right ahead. I'm going to stay in my hot tub. And so they just don't come along all that often. 3, it puts Egypt into the world. It had never been a participant in the world. People came to Egypt, bought food, left. Now it makes them a target of other states. If I am a king, I have to worry about what the pharaoh of Egypt is going to do. So if I want to conquer the Middle East, I now have to beat up the pharaoh of Egypt. I can't leave him out there. He might come out of the desert with a giant army. So I'm going to have to go to Egypt. And besides, Egypt's rich. I can use that money. So it makes it a target of other states. We have war all the time. And remember, for 2,000 years, we never had war. War was not natural. In Mesopotamia, war is totally natural. War is constant. There is no peace. Life is war. Peace is weird. In Egypt, you had peace and you didn't have war. So what it does is suck Egypt into the Mesopotamian world. And Egyptians don't like it. They want to be in Egypt. They want peace. They want prosperity. They want the quiet life they used to have. They don't really like it. In fact, you couldn't get into the afterlife if you weren't buried in Egypt, which tells all the soldiers walking across the Sinai are like, yeah, I don't know about this. General Billy, he gets me killed. I ain't getting into the afterlife. And the afterlife is nice in the Egyptian world. You get to be a farmer or whatever you were forever, and it was good. And now you're going to die on some field, on a mountain in Cilicia that you don't even know where that is on a map? WTF? So you can understand how hard it is. A Ramses can get 30,000 men. A Ramses can do it. General Billy, hey guys, want to go? Let's go. You can understand why that might not be so easy. And so there are problems. The new kingdom is very successful. It is the kingdom of Egypt that has King Tut. It is the Ramses. It is Moses, at least the Moses story. It is the most famous age. It is the one we know the most about. It is Ramses II is Osmandius, where Shelley will have a poem about how awesome he is. His visage is in the British Museum. This is it. This is the famous age. When you think of Egypt, when you think of ancient Egypt, this is what you're thinking of. You might like the Egyptian pyramids, but that's not the age you're thinking of. You're thinking of Ramses. That's the image you have of a powerful Egypt. So what happens? Well, the new kingdom will die in blood and fire too. But it's not its fault. It got invaded by peoples on the move. It got subsumed like a tidal wave in the Bronze Age collapse. Every civilization on Earth collapse. Now, the Egyptians were expecting invasions from across the desert, from Mesopotamia. And where did the invasions come from? From the sea. Greeks, Philistines, people on boats with giant double axes showed up, landed in the delta, and burned everything to the ground. It's possible these were Canaanites. These are the Philistines. These are the people of the Bible who get on the move. That's very possible because because they'll write about a memory of being in Egypt and then leaving Egypt. And so it's very possible this is what they remember, the Bronze Age collapse. This is the end of the New Kingdom. And what happens is this is the end of an independent Egypt. Egypt does recover after the Bronze Age collapse. It will remain the richest country in our ancient world. It's the richest land. But what will happen is Kush, the kings of Kush, the African kings of Kush will come down the Nile, conquer Egypt, and be accepted as the 25th, 26th dynasty. These are black African kings. And this is where the idea that Egypt is connected to Africa comes from, because it is connected to Africa, and two, for about 100 years or so, it is ruled by Africans. And so there's certainly going to be an assimilation. There's certainly going to be a mix. We see this if you go to Sudan. You can't go to Sudan, but if you were to go to Sudan, there are pyramids. These are small pyramids. They're personal pyramids, but they are 2,000 pyramids for Kushite kings. Where did they get the idea to build a pyramid? Obviously, they got it from their connection with Egypt. The Kushites will be defeated by the Assyrians. The Assyrians will be defeated by the Persians. Cambyses, son of Cyrus, will conquer Egypt. 300 years later, Alexander will come rolling through. Ptolemy, one of Alexander's generals, will take it over. His great-great-great-great-granddaughter will be Cleopatra. She will be taken over by Augustus, by the Romans. And Egypt will be conquered by the Romans. Egypt will go to the Byzantine Empire, the Greek-speaking Roman eastern half of the empire, when Rome collapses. And then Egypt will be conquered in 635 or so by the Arabs. And it's now an Arab country. There are no ancient Egyptians left there. It is an Arab country, speaking an Arab language, worshiping an Arab god, Allah. It's Arab. So this world, the world of the ancient Egypt, is gone. Had been assimilated out by the Greeks, by the Romans, by the Arabs. And so the last independent Egyptian kingdom is the kingdom of the Ramses, of the new kingdom. A kingdom born in blood and fire and dies in blood and fire. Thank you.